Today I am going to discuss about the second module of managerial economics, that is demand analysis. In this module we are going to study the demand analysis, law of demand, exception of law of demand, elasticity of demand, classification of price, income elasticity, gross elasticity, cross elasticity, promotional elasticity, uses, measurements of elasticity of demand, law of supply, elasticity of supply, demand forecasting, meaning, significance and methods of demand forecasting, and the problems on that. Before getting into what you mean by law of demand, let us see what you mean by demand. So as you all know, demand is nothing but it's a technical economic concept actually, and it is different and broader concept than the desire and want. And actually the demand has the following 5 elements. The first one is desire to acquire a product, willingness to have it or ability to pay for it, purchasing power to buy it, and willingness to spend on it or given particular price and on a given particular time period. So these are the following 5 elements of demand. And let us see what is mean by demand. So demand is nothing but you can see the want, the need or the desire which is backed by willingness and the ability to buy a particular commodity in a given period of time. Or the other way we can define the demand is it is the product refers to the amount of it which will be bought per unit of time at a particular price. So that unit of time is very important. So that is called as demand. So there are various types of demand, that is direct demand, derived demand, recurring demand, replacement demand, complementary demand, competing demand, demand for consumer goods and capital goods, and demand for perishable and durable goods. So let us see each one of them. So direct demand and derived demand. So direct demand refers to the demand for goods meant for final consumption. It is the demand for consumer goods. Example we can give like sugar, milk, tea, food items, etc. On the other way, derived demand refers to the demand for those goods which are needed for further production of a particular good. The example, like if you want the demand for cotton for producing cotton textile is a case of derived demand, and derived demand is a demand for producer goods actually. And the next one is like a domestic demand and recurring demand and replacement trend. Recurring demand means where the demand for the product which will be using always, so that is called a recurring demand. And replacement demand means like if one of the product price increases, we can replace with the other thing, so that is called as a replacement demand. And the third one is domestic demand and internal industrial demand. So the distinction between these two are like from the pricing and the distribution point of view of the product. So the price of water, electricity, coal, etc. is usually kept low for domestic use as the compared to the price of industrial use. And the next one is like perishable and durable goods. So perishable goods are also known as non-durable and single-use goods like bread, butter, ice creams and all. Durable goods are also known as non-perishable or repeated use goods. Example we can give like mobiles, bikes and all. And consumer goods and capital goods. Consumer goods, you know, which are used by the customers. Capital goods, which are the goods which are used in order to manufacture the product. So that is called as consumer goods and the capital. So these are the various kinds of demands which come across this. And let us see what are the demand function. So what are the factors influencing the demand function? So there are various factors that influence the demand functions, like we can express the relation between the demand and its driven mathematically, and usually we denote the demand function as dx, and it is a function of like price, income, taste and preference, habits, people with different tastes, relative prices of other goods, consumer expectation and advertisement effect. Let us see one by one how these factors influence the individual demand. Example like price. So as you all know, price is the basic factor. A consumer usually decides to buy with consideration of price. More quantity is demanded low price and less is purchased at high price. And the second one is income of the consumers, which is denoted by capital Y. A buyer income is a purchasing capacity. Income is therefore an important determinant of demand. With the increase in income, one can buy more goods. Rich consumers usually demand more and more goods than poor consumers. Demand for luxuries and expensive goods are related to income. And the third one is like taste, habits and preferences, so which is denoted by T. So demand for many goods depends on the person's taste, habit and preferences. Demand for several products, it may be like chocolates, beverages, and ice creams, so on, depends on the individual taste. So demand for tea, betel leaves, cigarettes, tobacco, etc. is a matter of habit. So that is called as demand with respect to the taste, preference and the habits. And the next one is relative price of other substitutes or complement commodities. So here, how much consumer would like to buy for a given commodity also depends on the relative price of other related goods, such as substitute or complementary. When we can be satisfied by alternative similar goods, they are called substitutes. Like example, peas and beans, groundnut oil and tin oil, tea and coffee, jaggery and bajra, etc. So these are examples for substitutes. And for complementary is nothing but like car and its type. So these are the examples for complementary goods. And the next one is advertising. So advertisement effect in modern times, the preference of the consumer can be altered by advertisement and sales propaganda. So in fact, demand may for many products like toothpaste, toilet soaps, washing powders, processed food, etc. is partially caused by the advertisement effect in the modern man life. And the next one is future expectations. So it is nothing but the consumer expectations. So the consumer expectation about the future changes in the price of a given commodity also may its demand. When we expects its prices to fall in future, he will tend to buy less at the present prevailing low price. Similarly, if he expects its price to rise in future, he will tend to buy more at the present. That is called as future expectations. And the last one is like population and economic growth. Population, it depends. If the population is more, the demand for the product is more. And the growth, if the companies have a good economy, and the demand for the product will be more. So these are the factors that influence the demand function. And the next one is law of demand. Law of demand, or before that I will go with the law of demand. Before that, let us see what do you mean by demand schedule, which has not been there in the slide. Actually, demand schedule is nothing but it is a statement of price or the quantity relationship is called demand schedule. It actually relates the amount of consumers is willing to buy corresponding to each conceivable price for that given commodity per unit of time. That is called as demand schedule. And let us see what you mean by law of demand. So law of demand, you can see in this, when the price goes up, the quantity demand goes down, and when the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up. So that is called as law of demand. So let us see what do you mean by the definition of law of demand, what it says. So the law of demand states that the other factor being constant, or you can say ceteris paribus, the price and quantity demanded for one good and service are inversely related to each other. That is, when the price of the product increases, the demand for the same product will fall, or vice versa. That means when the price of the product decreases, the demand for the product increases. So in other words also, you can explain that the conditional all on all else being equal, as the price of the product good increases, the quantity demand will increase. Conversely, as the price of the good decreases, the quantity demand will also decrease. So this is called the law of demand. So you can see in the graph now. See, when the price is 10, the quantity demand is 50. The price is more and the quantity demanded is average. When the price is decreased to 8, the quantity demand is 60. And when the price has been decreased to 6 and the quantity demanded keep on increasing to 70. When the price is 4, the quantity demanded is keep on increased to 80. So that's why we say that when the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. So when we plot the graph, taking the quantity in the x-axis and the price in the y-axis, so the dependent in the x-axis and the independent in the y-axis, we always get the downward slope. So always we say that the demand curve is a downward sloping curve. What are the reasons for this downward slope? So there are many reasons for the downward slope. Few of them are law of diminishing marginal utility, income effect change, substitute effect, size of consumer group, and different uses. So these are the reasons for downward slope. Let us explain each one. What do you mean by this law of diminishing marginal utility? So it is nothing but as the consumption of the commodity increases, the utility from each successive unit diminishes. Hence, every additional unit to be purchased by the consumer is willing to pay less price. That is called as law of diminishing marginal utility. And the next one is income effect change. So change in own price of the commodity causes a change in real income of the consumers. That means with a fall in price, real income increases. That means according to demand for the commodity increases and vice versa. That is called as income effect change. If we get more income, the demand for that product increases. And the next one is substitute effect. That means it refers to the substitution of one commodity for the other when one becomes relatively cheaper due to the change in relative prices. Example, petrol substituted with diesel or CNG, right? When one of the price increases, the other price decreases. So, and the next one is size of the consumer group. So size of the consumer group, it attracts new buyers who can afford to buy it, hence the quantity demand also rises. And the last one is different uses. If the commodity has different uses, then will expand if price decreases. That means if the price of the milk decreases, it can be used to make paneer, butter, curd, and also their demand increases. So that is called as different of price uses. And the next topic is exceptions. So what are the exceptions of law of demand? So there is various exceptions of law of demand like given goods, Veblen goods, future price changes, ignorance, emergencies, change in fashion and taste and preferences, conspicuous necessities, and bandwagon effect. So these are the exceptions where law of demand is not applicable. So let us explain one by one. Given goods. So given goods are nothing but the inferior goods whose demand increases with the increase in its prices. So there are several inferior commodities much cheaper than the superior substitutes, often consumed by the poor households as an essential commodity, right? So whenever the price of that given goods increases, its quantity demand also increases, because with an increase in the price and the income remaining the same, the poor people cut the consumption of superior substitutes and buy more quantities of the given goods to meet their basic needs. Like if the price of the bread increases, if the bread is a staple food, if they're consuming a little chicken with that, if the bread price rises, they stop purchasing the chicken because it is a superior good, whereas the bread is an inferior good, and they start buying the bread. So that is called as given goods. And the next one is Veblen goods, that is snob appeal. So another exception in the law of demand is given by the economists like Veblen, so who proposed that the concept of conspicuous consumption. According to him, there is a certain group of people who measures the utility of the commodity purely by its price, which means they think that higher priced goods and services derive more utility than the lesser priced commodities. Example, goods like diamond, platinum, ruby, etc. So it may also tells about the status, which is very important or conspicuous. So that's what is called as snob appeal. And the next one is future price changes. So when the consumer expects that the price of the commodity is likely to be further increase in the future, then he will buy more of it despite its increased price in order to escape himself from the pinch of much higher price in the future. On the other hand, if the consumer expects the price of the commodity to future fall in the future, then he will likely to postpone his purchase despite less price of the commodity in order to avail the benefit of much lower price in the future. And the next one is ignorance. Often people are misconvinced as high priced commodities are better than the low priced commodities, rest their purchase decision on such a notion. They may buy those commodities whose prices are relatively higher than the substitutes. and emergencies. So during the emergencies such as war, natural calamity, flood, drought, earthquake, pandemic, so the law of demand becomes ineffective. In such situations, people often fear the shortage of the essentials and hence demand more goods and services even at the higher prices, right? So next one is changing fashion and taste and preferences. So here the change in fashion trend and taste and preferences of the consumers actually negates the effect of law of demand. The consumers tends to buy those commodities which are very much in the market even at the higher prices. And the next one is conspicuous necessities. There are certain commodities which become essential of the modern life. There are goods which consumers buy irrespective of the increase in the price. Example, like I can give like TV, refrigerators, automobiles, washing machine, air condition. These are the necessities now. And the next one is bandwagon effect. So what do you mean by this bandwagon effect? It is also known as demonstration effect also, and this is the most common type of exception of law of demand, where the consumers tries to purchase those commodities which are bought by the friends, relatives or neighbor. That is nothing but influence, where they get influenced by their neighbors, relatives, friends. So here the persons try to emulate the buying behavior and patterns of the group to which he belongs irrespective of the price of the commodity. Example, like if some of the majority of the group members have smartphones, then the consumer will also demand for the smartphone even if the prices are high. So that is called as your bandwagon effect. So these are some of the exceptions of your law of demand, that is given goods, visible goods, future price changes, ignorance, emergencies, change in fashion and taste and preferences, conspicuous necessities and bandwagon effect. And the next topic is, so these are the things which I explained. It's there in the slides. You can go through that. So it will help to remember the things. And the next one is elasticity of demand. So what do you mean by elasticity of demand? So I can say, take a example of a rubber. When we expand the rubber, what will happen? It will increase in its size. When we release that, what will happen? It will decrease in its size. So the same way here also, when the price of the commodity increases or decreases, what happens to the demand for that product? That is called as elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand is nothing but it is a degree to which demand responds to the change in another economic factor such as price, income level, substitute availability, right? So the demand may depend on these factors, like it may depend on price, it may depend on income level, or it may depend on the substitution availability. So it measures how the demand shift with other economic factor change. Or the other way we can say that the elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of the quantity demanded of a commodity to the changes in one of the variable on which demand depends. That means if the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in one of the variable on which demand depends. So the formula is like elasticity of demand equals percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the determinant of demand. Determinant means it can be anything, that is it can be price, it can be substitutes, it can be like income, or it can be population, anything. So the variables of which the demand can depend on, like price of the commodity, price of related commodities, or consumer income. So this is called as elasticity of demand. So in this chapter you are going to study various types of elasticity of demand, like price elasticity of demand, cross elasticity of demand, and income elasticity of demand. So the formula of elasticity of demand is percentage change in the income divided by the percentage change in determinant of demand. So when we take with the price elasticity of demand, the formula will become like percentage change in quantity demanded of commodity X divided by percentage change in price of that commodity X. That is will be the formula of price elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand is also the same way, the percentage change in the demanded of commodity X divided by the percentage change in income of that commodity commodity X. So that is called as income elasticity of demand. Cross elasticity of demand is different, that is the percentage change in quantity demanded of X commodity divided by the percentage change in the elasticity of demand of Y commodity. So these are the few differences between your price elasticity of demand, cross elasticity of demand, and income elasticity of demand. Hope you understand all the topics which have been explained in the with this respect to this video. That is what you mean by demand, what you mean by law of demand, and what are the determinants of demand, and about the downward sloping of the demand curve, and what you mean by demand schedule, and what are the exceptions of law of demand, and what are the factors that influence the law of demand. And the next one is elasticity of demand, and what you mean by elasticity of demand, and what are the different types of elasticity of demand. In the next class we will in the next video I will explain you regarding what you mean by price elasticity of demand, and then the types of price elasticity of demand, and the factors that influence in the price elasticity of demand, and what you mean by cross elasticity of demand, and what are the types of cross elasticity of demand, and what you mean by income elasticity of demand, and the types of income elasticity of demand. Thank you.